How do you feel about premarital counseling? Especially, do you think you should go through your church, or do you think maybe you should go just maybe to like a licensed professional, or even if they have that option in the church? How do you feel
Oh,
about that?
I like that you said that. And this is just my experience, but I do believe I do believe you should go through a licensed person. Maybe a relationship counselor, relationship therapist or something like that. I do believe that is the better route. And the only reason I say that again from experience is because I believe church is church. We go by them scriptures. And what's the goal? Get you married. Better to marry than to burn. Don't want you fornicating. So it's like they mind and heart is in the right place, but I don't think the motive is in the right place. And I feel like with the church and this is just even from talking to other people who've been through like different churches, not just my church that's went through it, they pretty much kind of said the same thing. It's almost like we do the scriptures, we go through the scriptures. What does God say about marriage? We do the logistics of it, but they don't really dig into making you dig into yourself. Why are you getting married? What have you learned about this person? What have you learned about yourself? Do you know, like, okay, if this happens, how will you handle that? Like, what scenarios have y'all discussed? Like, it don't get into the deep depths of the behind the scenes marriage. You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
kind of talks about the surface scripture level so that you can kind of look like the marriage that God wants you to look like to people. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm saying it right, but it's like I do feel like you should go to, if the church have it, cool, but more of a relationship therapist or relationship counselor, like somebody that's legally certified in some type of psychological degree or something. Not, that spirit. I feel like do that first, but you also can do the ones at the church. But
Yeah.
as a secondary though, I don't feel like it needs to be primary.
I feel that. I feel that. And like you say, because it's easy to, you know, husbands love your wives and,
As Christ love the church,
wives
like
submit. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I get it because I'm a believer myself, but like you say, it's the deeper things that, those questions, that, hey, maybe this ain't gonna work because we having a serious conversation. It might not work.
yeah, and this is not to combat scripture. It's not to,
Of
to
course,
combat
sure.
the church, but this is what I feel like with that because that was one of them. That we went through. You got to love her like Christ loved the church, and of course he was in church and ministry, so he understood it. But you got to think about the men who don't understand it, the men who are not spiritual, the men who are not going to church. They don't know what you're saying. They just saying yeah so they can get it over with. They're not really connected like that. So I feel like we lose them. We're not doing due diligence when we're doing that, to those type of people. But we say that, but here's the thing with that. You can say love her like Christ loved the church, but let's be real, we are human. We are dealing with Christ ain't coming to us like our wife, and I'm just putting myself in y'all's shoes. Christ ain't gonna come to y'all like the wife gonna come to y'all. So it's like that ain't even a good example
Yeah.
because Christ ain't gonna come to you with no attitude or no assumptions or and I'm not just in general things that I've seen. Christ ain't gonna go through your phone. Christ ain't gonna tell you when you're coming home, where your homeboys at. Like what I'm saying. So it's almost like that hit the surface. That's your surface. That's not deep. It's not helpful.
Yeah.
So
It, no, I hear you. And even if the people don't even have that personal relationship, you know what I'm saying, let alone church. Um, but I get it. Because that's a whole conversation within itself, right?
yeah.
Yeah. At what point did you know there was trouble in paradise?
Oh, when did it start? I want to say it started obviously with the honeymoon was good. We came home. We bought our house pretty fast.
Mm.
So when we moved, so this is another thing too. Okay, I'm not telling you guys to stay together before marriage. I'm not telling you that. However, the real problem came when you actually stayed together. So it's like it's one of those things where it's like you still do not really know your person until you start moving in with them. And now you can't go to your house, he can't go to his, and you actually got to come home to each other.
Yeah.
And you actually got to communicate. So it started with our communication first. And it was like, again, I didn't grow up in church. I came into church at like 19, 20. He always grew up in church. So it got to the point where he wouldn't even communicate to me. He would run to the house of the Lord.
Mm.
So imagine the resentment I started having towards God,
Mm.
and I'm like, this the husband? Like, God, this the man you gave me? Like, we ain't gonna talk every time we go, he gonna leave and go to the church? Like, what? So it started with the communication, and it started early on. Um, we were married a total of 6 years, but we were separated like 3 of those years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Do you feel, because there's I won't say there's controversy around it, but there's a debate about should you live together with your significant other before marriage or vice versa? Like how do you feel about that?
personally, I do feel like it. I feel like I believe once you get engaged, once you know, oh yeah, this who I'm finna be with, we're finna do that thing. I feel like go ahead and move in once you're engaged because you've already this who you want to be with, right? You
Right.
start mingling because I think and I know the church doesn't, because that goes with stacking up, fornicating and all that. But let's be honest, you're fornicating before you even moved in the house. So let's be real here. So you moving in or not moving in ain't stopping nothing. So so
Right.
I do feel like in the single or the boyfriend girlfriend stage, whatever you want to call it, I do feel like y'all should be at each other's houses more. But I think once you finally engage, okay, let's start mingling. Let's start looking for a house together, apartment together, or whatever. Let's start staying together in our engagement stage. So you can kind of see kind of what's going on. You get that feel of it versus you don't know, and then all of a sudden you married, and now we just linked, and now it's like you just threw yourself in. You throwing yourself into something that you didn't gracefully go into. You just boom, this is what you're supposed to do because you married.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, because there's so much to talk about in that, and I don't want to stay there too long, but
yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder sometimes is there like do people act different when they're and I'm throwing my air quotes shacking up opposed to when they're actually married? I wonder if people kind of act different because, and I
You
have
know
an
what?
opinion on that, but you tell me what you
Right.
think.
And in my opinion is, and I'm a life coach. Look,
Yeah.
life and relationship coach. So Um, okay. So I do think there's a difference in between the way men think and the way women think about it. So I think women think that there will be a change after you're married. It's gonna be a really good change once you get married and move in together. Men is kind of like there ain't really no change. Like I don't expect you to just drastically. If you weren't cooking for me before, I don't expect you to be cooking for me after. So it's like I don't think men look forward to a drastic change after you're married and moved in. I think women do, and that's where a lot of our disappointments happen. But that's just a difference in between the way men and women think about it. So
Mm, no, I hear you. That's real. Looking back, what could you have done to keep your marriage, and what could you have done differently?
looking back from what I know now, I would not have gotten married that soon or to the person, that I got married to. I got married at 21, I believe.
Mm.
21 to 22, the age of 21, 22. I would not have gotten married that soon. I know some controversy behind that, but I wouldn't have got married that soon, and then I wouldn't have got married to that particular person. So it's really nothing that I could say that I would have done to keep it. But I will say for those who have went my route or that's trying to get married, I will say don't go into it thinking that another person is going to fill every void and the unhealed trauma that you had from like your childhood, teenage on up.
Mhm.
Don't go into it thinking that once you get married, that's going to fix all of that because it doesn't. It does none but bring it out even more. So
Totally agree with that. That is so real. So what did you do to heal after your divorce? How did Brandy find Brandy? What were some things that you did to heal?
after I got done having my fits and my angers and cries and all of that, I started because I was just church, work, home, church, married life. And then we end up having a son after, we got a year after we got married. So that's all I was focused on. Like I didn't have an outside life. So once I got through with my fix and being mad at God and, blaming him and all of that, I started finding myself. So I started finding things that I actually like to do that I didn't even know that I like to do. So I started skating. I started taking myself to the movies. I would just go by myself to go eat. I would go window shop. Like I would just go and, so quote unquote, I would dream again.
Mm,
Because I felt like I had lost everything and wasn't no hope again. I wouldn't find nobody else. Not that I couldn't, but it's just I didn't want to go through that again.
yeah.
Like, for me, it was like, what if I picked wrong again? So I just took that time and I started finding myself. And I still went through a bunch of BS, a bunch of things of, falling, hitting my head, making bad decisions. But during that journey, of doing that, it's like the childhood trauma started coming up. It was just so many layers that I was hiding and that I thought the marriage had covered. So it was like once that was over, I didn't have nothing to cover it with again. It's like everything just started coming up from the surface inside, internally, to the point where I was like, you know what? And everybody would come to me for their problems. I looked like I never had no problems. And I was like, you know what? Why is it that people feel like I ain't got no problem? Like, why do they come to me about all of their problems? They trust me. They vent to me about everything, names, everything. And I'm like, and they like, you should be a therapist. I'm like, no, I can't. I don't tell them that, but in my head, I'm like, I'm jacked up. Like I'm jacked up, and there's no way I can be a therapist. But then I started praying and asking God, like, okay, why is these people coming to me? Like it be people I be on the bus because when I went through my divorce, I went hit rock bottom. So we went through bankruptcy, we lost everything. So I'm having to find another car, a new house, just everything. So I'll be on the bus, I'll be walking, and people would just look at me and they be like, man, you got something, it's something on you, like an aura on you. You just seem peaceful. And then they would just start telling me their business. So I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't like it because my problems ain't even fixed. But everybody, come to me trying to tell me their problems. Like, I'm just so put together. So I started asking God to show me my purpose. What is this? Why am I going through this? And along the way, I was looking into therapy. Not going to therapy, but looking to being a therapist. And I looked at the school. I'm looking at my age. I'm looking at my son. I ain't really got support, to help me with him and stuff like that. So I'm like, I don't want to go through the schooling for being a therapist.
Mm.
But I was reading a lot of books. I'm a reader, so I read a lot of psychology books, mindset books. I was reading a bunch of stuff, listening to a bunch of stuff. And then it was to the point where I was like, you know what? Along that journey, life coaching came up. And I'm like, what the heck is a life coach? So I started researching that. And I'm like, you know what? That is a route I can go that's similar to therapy without going through all of the long schooling and tests. So as I started going through that and researching, I started finding content. I started YouTube, different podcasts. Again, I'm a reader, so books. The people that would come to me with their problems, I would, after I'm done with them, I would pray. Okay, God, how can I help them? What can I say to them? Like I was just doing all of that on my own journey, taking it off of myself and actually embracing the fact that even though I felt like I was broken to the point where I was unusable, I'm like, okay, but I'm still here. So it's something that you got for me. So then I started just embracing that journey of talking to people, helping them, giving them advice. And believe it or not, along that journey of me giving them that advice, I would go home, I would cry, and I would, just listening to what I said to them. And it was like a double-edged sword. So it was like I gave them that advice, but I had to go eat it later. I had to eat that same sword that I, gave to them. So that pretty much that's how I was able to heal, by giving other people advice. Probably
Mm.
sound crazy, but that's how I was able to heal. So
No, that makes sense because this
it
is
do.
no, it does
It
because
do.
it's like you learn as you teach.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But there's some of us that have a certain level of conviction that when we tell people stuff, we double back in our head. And maybe I don't know if I'm speaking for you too, but I know for me, I'm like, am I doing that too?
Bingo, bingo. That's and that's the thing. I don't like to get into oh, I'm gonna go back to one of your tweets you did. And I was at work, so I was sneaking on my phone, but I saw your tweet come through. It said, I think it was a question, and it asked, do you rather listen to single life coaches or married life coaches? I think, and I can't remember my exact response, but in that thing, it shows me that people, the titles matter more. And so people don't even listen to the information yet until they feel like they can relate to the title. I hate it. I hate it, but that's just how a lot of people's psychological mind is made. It's just made up. So with that being said, I'm like, okay, I'm not married. I'm divorced, but I know what God is doing. I know what his purpose is in me. I know the lessons I've learned, and I know the advice that I can give. I know the help that I can give. So I'm going to continue on because truth be told, what I'm saying to y'all, single, married, divorced, or whatever, what I'm saying to y'all, I'm eating those words just as much. I'm not just saying it because it sounds good. I got to go sit with that too. So it's like I always got to be up to par because I was having a fit with God one day and I'm like, look, I don't want to do this no more because every time I got to tell them something, like you checking me and whooping me on, like I got to face that too. So it's like if you're not ready to really sit in your own stuff, take the accountability and change for yourself, that advice you get, it's gonna be empty for one, because people don't, people is smart. They gonna be like, you just saying it, you don't even live by that. So it's like, to your tweet the other day, so I'm like, I'm confident to call myself a life coach, even being serious, a relationship coach, even being single, because the information I know is solid. Like a lot of information I say, a lot of people that's actually married say the same thing. So, I'm confident that I'm on the right path of learning myself so that I can give that same information out to help others heal and hopefully not go through the same thing that I went through with
Yeah.
relationships. Hopefully.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And no, one of the reasons I connected with you because your content was out of control. I was like, let me email her, because
Yeah.
yeah, so no, don't ever feel I mean, I get it, but
No, but it was a good. I like the question. I wish I went at work because I probably would have hopped like, hey, can we go on get on the what they call him on Twitter,
I know
the
you're talking
video
about.
thing, the
Yeah.
rooms or whatever they call it. I wish I went at work because I would have hopped on like, this is good. Like I'm not afraid to have those conversations, because again, like people, I'm divorced. Marriages, if you do the statistics, there's a lot of people divorced, especially the ones in the church. So it's like, this is not taboo. We need to discuss it. And people need to be okay with, this might sound bad, but people need to be okay with the divorce. Like, don't, a lot of us get married for the wrong reason. I can just say, I did. I know I did,
Preach.
you
Preach.
know. And we say, oh, let no man separate what God has joined together. You're absolutely right. What God joined together. It's a lot of things we joined together that he didn't join. So you
Preach.
can't use that script, because I questioned that too when I got divorced. I'm like, God, you said, don't let no man separate what you joined together. And I started fast. I was mad. And I'm like, why am I going through this? I'm mad, and like he taking me to different scriptures, and I'm looking here like, oh my God, you never told me to marry. You didn't tell me to marry him. My mind did, my fantasy did, the church people did, but you didn't tell me to marry him.
And all things work together for the good, right? I mean,
Ooh,
you're
yes.
wiser and you smarter, you know what I'm saying?